Last night on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome inside the Fan Cave. Bob Pompeani here. Andrew Fillipponi joins me up at 93.7 The Fan. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. And you can call at 412-575-2600 is the number, or on Twitter at KDPomp, at the Pony Express, as we get set to talk to you here on TV and also on 93.7 The Fan, where we will simulcast this broadcast. And Andrew, I want to get your take first on the Penguins as they head on now one of the most important road trips they have all season, given where they are. They've won 2 games back-to-back since Kyle Dubas came out and said that he's going to assess the next 2 weeks. They haven't been pretty necessarily, but they got wins. What do you think they have to do on this upcoming road trip, knowing that Brian Rust won't be part of it after he suffered an injury yesterday?
Yeah, Bob, that's just a killer. Now you've got 2/3 of that dynamic Sidney Crosby line out, and that's where they've gotten all their production from this year. Whoever is on a line with Sid, and now you're going to ask guys who have probably struggled all year, whether that's Ricard, Raquel. We'll see now who gets the call in Rust's spot to jump up there and play well with Sid. Now, I'm not going to doubt Sidney Crosby because, as we saw again yesterday, he is at 36 years old still, one of the very best players in the entire league. But to answer your question, what do they need to do on this streak here? They've got 4 games out west and then 2 more at home before the trade deadline, Bob. They've got to, I think, get on this trip. I would think they've got to get at least 6 points.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Somewhere in that
6
neighborhood,
of 8. Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, that to me would at least keep you afloat. It all would depend too on what happens with the teams they need to leapfrog over. But they're not in a good spot. They've put themselves in a position where close losses or 1-point games, where they get to overtime or the shootout, not good enough, based on the hole that they've dug themselves.
Yeah, and they're in a situation where, as you mentioned, there are a bunch of teams ahead of them, and 2 of the teams that occupy the wild card right now both won yesterday, Tampa and Detroit. And Detroit did it in very interesting fashion with Patrick Kane getting the game winner in his old stomping grounds. But, you know, to complicate this is the fact that now they're looking at this trade deadline, and you're trying to figure out the mandate coming into this whole situation was win now with this group, give one more chance, one more run before they're all done, and age out. Well, now you hear Kyle Dubas talk about being younger, which goes against that mandate, I think, especially if it means you're going to trade one of the biggest pieces you have in Jake Guentzel. If they are close, I'm just going to be curious to see how he handles this. If they're not going to be able to catch those teams in this next 6 games, Andrew, but let's say they put themselves in a position where they're within striking distance. If Guentzel comes back, it's like adding a tremendous goal scorer. But if you trade him, you take that away. You may help yourself in the future, but you're hurting yourself right now. And the mandate was to win now, isn't it?
Well, it was, but this team has put Kyle Dubas in a precarious situation. Okay, yeah, it would feel like you get a shot in the arm getting Guentzel back, but Bob, what did they do with the 50 games prior with Guentzel in the lineup? They didn't look like a playoff team. Last year with Guentzel on Sidney Crosby's line, they didn't make the playoffs. So I would not want, if I'm Dubas, to be I would not want to be I would not want to overestimate or overvalue what happens here. You know, the Pirates did that when they made that stupid Chris Archer trade. Neil Huntington overreacted to something that happened for a 2-week stretch, and then he made one of the worst trades in franchise history. So what we see from the Penguins over the next few games, that's not necessarily an indication of who they really are. The lion's share of the games this year, the bigger sample size says, unfortunately, that they're not a very good team. So, hey, if it's not a good offer, Bob, you don't take it. You don't just give them away for nothing. But if there's first-round picks and prospects on the table, I think I'm trading Jake Guentzel, even if they do play well over the next half dozen games.
And I would understand that. The only thing I'll say to you is it's a little different in hockey in the postseason. We've seen teams who are 8 seeds run the table and win a championship. So if you don't think the Penguins in a best-of-7 can actually size up against another team, I think they can. I think if everything goes right and their goaltending is good and they get a better power play, these are all things that they can change. So I think it's a little different there, but it's going to be fascinating in the next 6 games, no doubt. Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night is Pittsburgh Steelers history Marquise Pouncey at the 2010 NFL Combine. And of course, this is a very big combine coming up for all these teams that have a lot of issues, and the Steelers are in no shortage of situations where they need help. I don't think quarterback is an area that they're going to help themselves. Joe Starkey and I were talking about something interesting before we go to the lines here today, Andrew, and that would be what the Chicago Bears do with this #1 overall pick. And I guess Peter King had suggested, why not trade with the team right below you, drop from 1 to 2, get a #1 pick, and then do it again from 2 to 3 with the teams, all of them, Washington, New England, all need quarterbacks. Interesting strategy, do you think? And what do you think that could produce for them if they did that?
Good question. They could end up having just an absolute treasure chest of picks if they do it that way. Just an unreal bounty of picks if they keep moving back from 1. I've heard. Well, if you're saying they're going to go, Washington goes 2 to 1, Bob. You're saying in that situation,
Washington goes
would
from
go up 1 spot.
No, yeah, they'd go up to 1 if Chicago is willing to do that and drop 1 below. And then they could go down to 3 and move New England to 2. All 3 teams need quarterbacks, so it depends on who you want to get, of course. And we've seen that if you don't take the right quarterback, it could be costly no matter how you do it. So.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not going to disagree with the guy in his retirement day, Peter King. He did such a great job. But if Chicago's moving out of 1, why would New England move up to 2 with them? Like, they would probably feel like Chicago's not going to take a quarterback then, right? They're just going to keep Justin Fields.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Why
I mean,
not
that's
just
what
let
it would.
Chicago make the pick at 2?
Right.
That's what I would do if I were New England.
He was trying to get how many draft picks he could have gotten out of this as an exercise, I think. And I think you could get quite a bit if you start doing that. They also have the 9th overall pick. It'll be interesting what happens with Chicago. A lot of people were speculating the Fields will be traded this week. Let's get to the lines. A lot of them. Our #1 Cochrane Go One Better caller of the night is Jim in Green Tree. Andrew, what's up, Jim? How are you?
Hey, Bob. How you doing? Hi, Flippy. How you doing?
Hey,
Bob, I got a question for you. The Penguins ain't going to make the playoffs this year because Malkin ain't scoring and Letang ain't doing too good. I mean, Jerry's doing good in goaltending, but they're not going to make the playoffs this year.
Well, they may trade Jari. And before you say that, I think there's a lot of hockey left. And all I'm suggesting here is if they go on some sort of run, and I looked at some of their previous West Coast trips, specifically Western Canada, they've had a lot of success on them. And if they could somehow put together some kind of streak here, they haven't done it all year, Andrew, this would be an interesting time to do it. And with games in hand, you can certainly cut the deficit down. Tampa has struggled at times this year. And I think the Flyers are due to go backwards, given Carter Hart's out, and you don't know when he's coming back. And we saw Cal Peterson look awful yesterday, which helped the Penguins.
If the Penguins are 6 points out, the day after, I think they play Washington on the 7th of March.
Right.
So if they're after these 6 games, if they're 7 out and they're 24 hours away from the trade deadline, and you're Kyle Dubas, Bob, do you trade or keep Jake Gensel?
Well, again, for me, it would depend on the offer. I always have to put that first. My inclination would be.
Would you feel like a buyer or a seller 6 out?
First of all, if he doesn't agree to any kind of contract terms, and I got to believe they're going to throw something in front of him. Again, he's turned 1 down. If he decides that he's worth a lot more than I'm willing, then that makes my decision an easier one.
But I'm trying to get to the number where you would feel like they're still in it. How many points in back of that last wild card spot would you say to yourself, I think they can still make the playoffs?
Well, given the fact that they have 6 games coming up here before the break, they're going to lose 2 of those games in hand. So they'll still have 2 games in hand on 2 of the teams they'll be chasing. If you get to within 6 points or 5 points and 2 games in hand with a month left of the season, don't you think that's doable?
I think it's doable, but it's still you still have to probably skip another team in between you and that wild card spot. I wouldn't think you would be the 9th team in the East. I think you might be in 10th place. I still would look at it like, man, Gensel doesn't want to stay here, at least doesn't want to sign the contract extension now. I might as well try to get something for him. Replenish. Get a younger guy. Kyle Dubas talking about getting younger. So I think I would. In that situation, I would trade him. And I would look to trade other guys too. This Jari thing, it's not just, Starkey comes in caffeine deprived and throws something out there, Bob. You've got Elliot Friedman saying they're going to take calls and listen on Jari. And he didn't say that like, hey, they take calls on everybody. Every GM takes calls. It's just what they do. He almost made it sound like they might be motivated to move him, which I'm shocked by, given the commitment that they made to him this offseason. And it's not really like Jari has done anything, Bob, to make the GM or the team feel like he's not the player that they re-upped this summer.
Yeah, but he has something that a lot of teams would want, stability and a price that's nice. Plus, they have Joel Blomqvist in their minors, and he's been pretty good down there.
But isn't that appealing to them? Isn't that price and that contract appealing to them right now? That's what I thought.
Well, it may be, and they may never trade him. A lot of this is just fodder you throw out. Sure, there are going to be calls. We'll see where it goes. If I'm looking at Gensel, however, I want a lot. My asking price, I don't care if he's a rental player. Rental players have a big impact on who wins Stanley Cups.
Do you think you'd get more for Gensel or Jari?
Depends on the team, and it depends on the need they have and how big that need is. Goaltenders are.
But if you had to, don't you think Jari, because the number of years,
sure,
would get more?
But if I'm a close team, and I don't see any team anywhere in the NHL right now that considers themselves a lock to win a Stanley Cup. There's a lot of evenly matched teams. Things can happen. If you're a team that needs somebody who can score in the playoffs, and he has a history of doing it, you'd give up an awful lot to bring that person in to help your team. And it would make a big difference, I think, in getting over the hump. And if you're winning a Stanley Cup, even if you don't sign him after this year, so what?
But look at Colorado's goaltending situation, Bob. Why wouldn't they give up some picks and players to get a guy like Jari?
And it's most likely if you're going to trade him, you want to get him out to the West, too. So we'll see. All right, let's go out to Regis in Castle Shannon. Hey, Regis.
Hey, Bob and Andrew. How you doing, guys?
Good. What's up?
Hey, Reg.
Yeah, I was listening to you and Joe this morning, Bob, talking, and Joe was saying he really liked the way the Penguins played, all the scoring yesterday. Why not put Malkin up with Crosby? Because Malkin ain't doing crap.
Well, Joe thinks they should get into this up and down, open ice, trade shot for shot and opportunity for opportunity, and I don't think that's the case at all. I think they'd get smoked that way, and the reason is not because it's not in their pedigree, because without Sidney Crosby, no one else is doing that. Who else on this team is scoring on a routine basis? It's Sidney Crosby and nobody else. Malkin has 2 goals in 22 games, I think, or 23 games. Sure, you got elite defensemen who are capable of chipping in, but their biggest addition should be on the power play, and that's not worked. If that would just work, it would make life a lot easier because the pressure would go off of the 3rd and 4th line, which is expected to score, and they can't, Andrew, so that's where that is.
Yeah, I just maybe to stick up for Joe and play devil's advocate on his behalf. I don't feel like I've seen enough of like these Carlson plays where he's activated and he creates goals off the rush. So he lugs the puck in, he carries it through the neutral zone, and through his great skating and passing, there's a goal that results from it. I thought I'd see a lot more of that this year. You know, that's how you get to 101 points and you win in Norris. This guy basically, not just on the power play, and I know he's been a colossal disappointment there, but Bob, how many times, you go to a lot of games, do you see him make those plays? Which he did a ton of in Ottawa. We saw him do that enough when they played the Penguins in the playoffs. And then last year in San Jose. I just wish that was a bigger part of his game and their game as a team, giving him the freedom and the license to do more of that.
Yeah, I would agree, but I don't know if they're telling him not to do it. I don't know why he's not doing it, to be honest. Let's go to JB in Shadyside. JB, welcome to the Sports Call. Go right ahead.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Hey.
Good. So, like, this Justin Fields talk, I mean, this guy is not good. I think he's really stinks. He makes terrible decisions. I would not trade for him. Actually, would draft maybe Sam Hartman or Grant Wilson, this guy from Old Dominion, maybe later in the draft, try to steal somebody. But no, Justin Fields is a bum. I'm sick of hearing about him.
Well, I'm not going to classify him as a bum. I think he has a lot of talent at age 24. You know, he's made mistakes. He's played on a bad team with a bad organization, I think. But I think he has a lot of talent. And we saw back-to-back games where he threw 4 touchdown passes. Maybe Sean Payton will be the guy who wants to trade for him because he saw firsthand what he can do. But also in that game, he saw him fumble and intercept. So, Andrew, he has his warts, but he's 24, and he's put an awful lot of experience in, and he can do things with his leg that not many quarterbacks can do.
He's actually got more rushing yards to this point in his career than Lamar Jackson had. So as far as his legs go, he's equal parts Jackson, which is crazy to think. Yeah, he fumbles the ball too much. That one is, any fan that brings that up, I don't have a great rebuttal, but As far as playmaking goes, it's 40 touchdowns to 30 picks. Okay, Kenny Pickett's 13 to 13. So he makes more plays than Kenny. He turns the ball over a little bit more, no doubt. But what's the way to go? Playing it safe at quarterback or going with someone that has more high-end playmaking ability?
Yeah.
I think I'd prefer the latter right now, Bob.
All right, one more call before we go to the break, and that's Dave in Tarentum. Dave, go right ahead and make it quick, please.
Yeah, I'm Bob Pony. I apologize for the question because it's not real sports. But did either of you watch the match tonight on TNT with Rory and Max Homa and Lexi Thompson and Rose Zhang? I just found it so entertaining, and I was just curious if you guys watched it and or found it entertaining.
I mean, it's made for television. It's at night where they bring in lights and all that stuff. That's fine, but it's made for television. I don't necessarily find it entertaining. I mean, on a night where there's nothing else going on, Andrew, I suppose it would be if you're a golf fan. But beyond that, unless there's
can we get some people involved here that are actually interesting? I mean, give me a match. You want to give me a match? Let's get John Rahm and Tiger Woods out there, and Rahm can give Tiger some strokes, and we can settle this feud that they've got going on. Or let's get the top guy from Liv against the top guy. Have Rory take on Rahm.
I want a Ryder Cup
watch
featuring Liv versus PGA. Andrew, almost out of time. Real quick, do the Penguins get off to a good start against Vancouver tomorrow or not?
No, because I picked Vancouver to win the Stanley Cup this year.
Pitt and Clemson, who wins? Quick.
Clemson.
And if you want to get your opinion heard, don't forget to tune in to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call tonight at 10:35 on KDKA+. So give us a call at 412-575-2600. We do it every night after the 10 o'clock news. For CBS News Pittsburgh, I'm Bob Pompeani.